before we have it on up this
Well,
morning? Or?
yeah, I just talked to Spencer Jones this morning about a couple issues he's concerned about. He's okay with the alignment, he just got a couple other issues.
Okay.
So we probably, I'd like to just talk to you for a minute.
Well,
Ready?
Rolling.
Good morning and welcome all. The Iron County Commission meeting of the 8th day of July 2019 is convened. Commissioner Mike Blake is excused. He's in Brazil picking up his son off of an LDS mission, so great family time for them. Well, and I might say we're especially grateful that we have power, because Parowan, Brian Head at Paraguna, and I've heard Beaver for part of the time, I'm not sure, have been out of power without power. The notice I got this morning said a problem at the substation, but previous notices said that the feed to the substation, so I don't know. I talked to a high-ranking, excuse me, talked to a high-ranking Rocky Mountain Power official Saturday night, and he said that it was a bushing. And he said we had to get it out of Portland, and I thought, well, anyway, quite a few different problems, but they finally got everybody up and going. But there's been a lot of generators running in Parowan to keep the fridges and freezers going and so on. So, but we're blessed to live in this day and age. It's not too tough, actually. So anyway, Ryan, could we ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'll give the opening prayer this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, humbly we approach Thee at the beginning of our Iron County Commission meeting this day. We thank Thee for the beautiful weather we have. We're grateful for the restoration of electric power to the Parowan Valley and Brian Head and these areas, and we're thankful to live in this modern time where we have all the conveniences that we have and the technology. We pray especially for all the people of Iron County, that those who have trouble, sick and afflicted, whatever it might be, that they will be returned to normal conditions. We pray that we will be inspired as we make the decisions that need to be made this day, and that we will do what's right. We're grateful for this land of the free and for the republic that has been established here for over 200 years, and pray that may continue forever. And we ask these blessings now and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, let's see. We've got, hopefully others show up for reports. So we'll start with fire because Ryan's here, and hopefully Dennis Johnson and Joyce will be coming soon.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, good morning. It's again a pleasure to be here before you today. I've handed you a little packet there that's got some information I'll quickly go over. The first page there, you'll see human-caused fires. Those are statistics from 2002, when I first started this position, to 2018, or through to 2018. Just highlight a few of those. The number one cause of fires in Iron County, wildland fires in Iron County, continues to be natural lightning. And there's not much we can do to prevent those fires. Human caused, the top you'll see on the graph there is miscellaneous unknown. So those are fires that are investigated with an unknown cause. Most of those fires are happening along the side of the roadways, and they can be a variety of different things. They are very difficult to investigate just because of the amount of debris that's located on the side of the highway. Second to that is equipment. So those, again, are mostly driven to highway fires, and those are primarily blown tires, chains that are dragging. Again, really hard for us to try and get a hold of. We're working at the state level to try and get more billboards up to bring attention to those type of materials, especially the dragging chains. That's a kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. So I'm working with some of the private companies such as Maverick, Chevron, those different gas stations, to put a little placard on the gas station or on the actual pump to remind people to check those things. So
Twist your chain so it doesn't.
Yeah, yep. Twist your chains up. Make some adjustments to your vehicle. Make sure it's in good working order. That is something that we can work on. We continue to do that. Additionally, I'm working with UDOT to reduce those fuels along the side of the state highways, as well as working with the county weed department to mow along those side of the freeways. It's working really well. Last year, we had a fire off of Highway 130 on the north end of the county. It was a result of a vehicle rollover. The vehicle started a grass fire. That fire grew to 6,000 acres in one afternoon, driven by wind. That was the Black Mountain Fire, burned on BLM managed ground. The very next day, we had an ignition on I-15 just outside of Parowan, and a police officer stopped and put it out with his foot. The difference between mowed fuels versus unmowed fuels. So it's working. It's reducing our exposure to the highway and those rockets that are running up and down them. So
I noticed they mowed down by New Harmony. That's a tinderbox, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And right now, I just got off the phone with UDOT on the way over. They just got the mower about a week and a half ago. They started at the county line. They're working north on I-15, and they're just north of the rest area. So they're making pretty good progress there, and will continue to do so. So we started mowing in the county, I want to say right around the 1st of May, and those guys have been doing a really good job there as well. As I go around, I mean, obviously we have a ton of fuel on the ground, but they're making good progress in the county on those county right-of-ways. So
yeah, I think their timing was right. I mowed a lot of foxtail on my private lands early, and it just came back.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
It stimulated it, there's so much moisture, and it wasn't dry because you like to get it early, and so I think they hit it about right. But there's places though where it's so heavy that the mower hasn't done a perfect job. So it's going to be a tricky year, but that's made a huge difference to have it mowed. So.
I agree, and it is going to be a very tricky year. However, we hopefully we'll see some moisture. It looks like maybe towards the end of next week we might see a little surge of monsoonal moisture, which might moderate us out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I will just add that when those roadways are mowed and taken care of, it does make the area look much better too. So it is beautiful.
Big safety factor too for kids
huge.
That may be walking along the roads and they can't get off the road or whatever. So
yep, I agree, that as well as deer and that sort of thing. So it definitely improves that line of sight. So we want to definitely keep that going. Yeah. As we kind of go down the list here, failure to obtain a burning permit has continued to be a problem. That is getting much, much better with the new online permitting system and those debris burns. We've also seen a reduction in that with the online permitting system. So those that we can address, we're doing so pretty aggressively, trying to reduce those human-caused fires and reduce the impact to the taxpayer's wallet. Mother Nature does enough to us, so trying to give people the opportunity to do what they need to do to clean up their property, but at the same time reducing those human ignitions. Any questions on the stats? Okay.
Just
Yeah.
well, kind of separate from the stats. But will there be any opportunity for landowners to burn areas of cheat grass, or not?
Yes.
Well, cheat's bad, but foxtail that is worse than ever this year, and it would be so nice to get rid of those seeds. And I realize the danger, but well,
Yeah, so I'm watching the conditions really close. With the new county burn ordinance, we've added 44 days to that burn window. If you can remember back, it used to be a 1 month period of time, April 15th to May 15th. That burn ordinance now allows from March 1st to November 15th, and it's based off conditions. So rather than looking at the calendar and saying, well, this is when we burn and doing it on a dangerous day, we're looking at the conditions and doing it on the right day. So as soon as we get some moderation in the fuels, we'll open that back up and keep that open until November 15th, which is actually the latest we can go by state statute. So we're at our maximum levels on both ends. And yes, it's a huge problem. I want people to be able to clean those up and remove those fuel loads and those hazards that, especially the foxtail, present to us. So we'll keep a close eye on that and open it up as soon as we can.
Thank you.
You bet. The next page, you'll see the fire occurrence chart. This year, you'll notice through June, so far has been one of our slowest years since I started this position. We continue to fluctuate right around 50 fires a year, between 50 and 100 fires a year. With the weather the way it was this year, we obviously had a very wet spring, and again, with people obtaining those burn permits and burning on the right days, that's helped us tremendously. So I anticipate July and possibly August picking up with the amount of fuel we have and with the lightning coming in. So, but our human-caused fires overall are down significantly. So
It's interesting to look at this because 05 and 10 were both wet years, and they're very low.
Yes.
Also. So
yes,
obviously the moisture makes a huge
Yes.
difference. But then it grows a lot of grass, and sometimes we have problems later. So
yeah. Usually it's the year after
See,
the wet year.
06, it goes from 14 to 38.
Yep. Yeah, when we go, usually the wet year is a slow year for us. The following year is typically really busy because we have that fuel loading that still exists. So hopefully we'll have a significant snow again this year that'll mat that material down and prevent it from next year, but time will tell.
Yeah.
So the good news is we are out of the drought, so things are better, especially in our heavier fuels. There's a little more water available for those sagebrush, pinyon juniper, but those fuels tend to be trending on the wetter side right now. So, any questions on that?
oh, good data.
I'll just kind of skim over real quick. So 2018 and 2019. So I try and pick up July through July since that's when I do my updates. You can see 2018 we issued 98 burn permits between July through November. And you can see in 2019, we've already issued over 400 permits. So people are taking advantage of that. I encourage it. We're seeing some great results from it. Our communications are much better. They apply for the permit online. I get a notification immediately. I send that notification on to the Cedar Communication Center as well as the local fire department. And then the individual calls in. The permits are good for 3 days at a time. There's no charge with them. The individual calls into those two entities for final approvals. On windy days or days that are hazard, we can catch them when they call in and let them know that the hazard exists, and we can extend that permit out. But we're seeing a lot of success with that, so we're real happy with that. Prevention, ongoing. We try and get into the classrooms as much as we can. We participate in the Cedar City's Life Safety Week, which is a huge success and has been for several years. We plan to continue keeping that going. When we're available, of course, there's just a couple of us. We try and participate in the parades. The Summer Games has helped us out with getting a message on the Megatron, which has been helpful. And then I'm utilizing the clerk's office for mailings. So when they're doing their billings, we're putting a prevention message when it's appropriate on those mailings. So there's some good information getting shared out there. We have the new fire prevention signs that are continuing to be put up. We've got several of them up already, but that's helping us out a lot as well. They're very visible. So keep hitting the prevention road. I'd like to prevent every fire that I can. Any questions on prevention or concerns or anything we can do better there?
So when they do a permit, it alerts you where they're going to burn. So you're aware. Everybody kind of knows that's going to happen. If it gets out of hand, you're there.
Yes.
It's a big difference for you.
Yes, so they actually can go online, they fill out the permit. The permit is actually generated through Utah Air Quality website. Air Quality wants to track the emissions that are being put off by these burns. So it's helping them and it's helping us rather than duplicate a system that's already there. As soon as they push submit, the form is emailed to me, has the location, the material they're burning, their address, and then I can forward that to the fire department having jurisdiction as well as the communication center. So everybody that needs to know is in the know. A deputy sheriff that's out patrolling, he can see that smoke. He can actually go to the CAD and look and see if they've got a permit before he even makes contact with that individual. So everything's getting shared across the board so people are all aware. Trying to just reduce duplications where we can. It also helps with me with tracking how many permits we've issued. So the 400 is astronomical. In the past, maybe we would write 20 or 30 a year. So going to this program has really helped us out a lot.
Why so many this year? Just because the fuel loads?
I think it's,
like I almost said, the weeds and people.
And I think it's the ease of the permit system.
Okay.
In the past, they would call into the fire department, and a lot of times that wouldn't even get documented, and it certainly wouldn't get shared with me. And so I think the fact that it's getting documented, and again, I think people are able to take advantage of it, especially with the broad time periods. So it's a great program. I know other counties in the state are looking at how we're doing it, looking at our ordinance. It's been great. It really has. So, and it's also an opportunity to provide some prevention education if needed. I can call that individual and say, hey, this is a restricted material, or maybe this day isn't the right day for what you're trying to do. If it's something large and they don't feel comfortable with it, we can help them out with a standby. So, fuels reduction, we continue throughout the county. I won't read through that list. I provide that for you guys for your information. I would, just promoting the consolidated growth, trying to encourage people to do subdivisions in and around the communities versus the scattered subdivisions. Those subdivisions are very difficult for us to deal with as far as fire goes, especially when it comes to the fuels mitigation component of it. It seems that when they're out in the middle of nowhere or in an area that's a wildland-urban interface, it creates its own hazards and its own hurdles for us to try and manage those fuels. So encouraging developers to do fuels treatment before they start their development is something that we're working on, and continue to work with the building department and the planning department with that. So try and prevent it before it starts. Any questions on fuels? Go over to training. You can see the 2018 and 2019 breakout of trainings that we've provided. We continue to see a decline in volunteers. That's very concerning to me. We've got some departments that literally only have a couple of folks that are left to volunteer. So we continue to do what we can there to try and help those folks and make sure that they've got the training they need and the tools they need for their jobs and to be successful there. It's a national issue. That volunteerism is a big deal, and hopefully we can do something to create some interest and kind of help that situation out.
I think
go ahead.
The world just seems to be a busier place.
It is.
People I think would volunteer, but I've got this, I've got 2 jobs, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I hope we can correct that, but get more people to volunteer. I don't know what you do when you have an volunteer-only fire department and nobody shows up.
Yeah, it's really scary, and we've had several calls that the local fire department just couldn't staff to help out. So I've got some ideas I plan on bringing back to the commission, likely later in the fall, only because this time of year is so busy for me right now. But I've got some ideas that I'd like to bring forth to the commission later in the fall, maybe a proposal to try and help the employers of those volunteers that have jobs do some sort of an incentive to the employers and let the employers do some recruiting for us. I don't know. It's a pilot program. We'll see how it works. But Utah being a volunteer state, one of the states in one of the states in the union that is big on volunteerism, it's kind of nerve-wracking to see the decline. Yeah. And a lot of that's driven by the economy. When people have work, they tend to not have the time to volunteer elsewhere. So, but man,
so we don't want a downturn so we can have firefighters.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some things that we can do during the economy being good for us that will also promote that volunteerism. But super appreciate those guys and gals. We have some of the best firefighters in the nation right here in southern Utah. So
we do. It's
great to have those folks available to us. Any questions on training? We continue to make sure that our folks are well trained. We train to the national standard for wildland fire, so those people that meet the qualification standards are able to go anywhere in the nation and fight fire. And yeah, they've got some great experiences and some great work ethics. So proud to have those folks. Last but not least, the fire needs. We've discussed the building. That continues to be our top priority. I'm working with John on a CDBG grant, as well as we've got some approval from some additional funding that we can help towards that. So we continue to work on that and try and come up with some sort of a solution. Again, we're not looking for a big, nice, fancy fire station. We just need a place that we can work out of. So
we're continuing to work, as you know, to work on that too, and hopefully that's all going to come together for our other building needs and yours.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the commissioners and what you guys have done, and John and other staff that have been involved. There's been a lot of work that's gone into that, and that's certainly recognized and appreciated. So our second need that we had was a county vehicle to replace the Durango we had. Thank you to the commissioners and the sheriff's office. We were able to pick up one of their excess vehicles, which is perfect. It's exactly what we needed. Gets us into a pickup truck, which is a lot more practical than the SUV. And we have cleaned that SUV up, and it is ready to go over to the tourism bureaus, so for their use. So I appreciate that. I'll answer any questions or concerns. And
I did want to point out one thing. One idea that we've had together is to add some of the fire messages to the billing on our landfill. It's been a good cooperative thing. I think it gets your message out, and it's very welcome from Bruce's end, because it saves him some money. So
yeah, and for the commissioners, with the state program that we're associated with, we have the participation commitment match. So we're using that credit out of the participation commitment match to cover the cost of those billings, which is a savings to the landfill. So it's something the county's already doing. It's something that I try and track as much of what the county's already doing, so we're not having to spend those hard dollars out of that account. So we are, again, leading the way with the state. I have with me the Iron County Wildfire Preparedness Plan, which is a requirement of that program. And I will note that our plan was the first that was completed in the state out of the counties. So we continue to try and pave the way. I hear it all the time. Ryan, I wish we could clone you. So appreciate the support. I've attached my my budget summary. We're on track with the budget. Again, that Iron County PC funding, I try and track as much of the in-kind as we possibly can there for those expenditures to save us the hard dollars in the account. So,
okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Well,
yes, sir.
Other than the little fire out above the detention center, do you have many others with fireworks?
Yes, we had about a dozen fires reported to the 911 center on the 4th of July that were firework related. Half of those were extinguished upon arrival, people going out with their garden hoses, that sort of thing. We did have the high-risk fire there on Jeep Hill. I had worked with the BLM, and so we had extra staffing on that night, and we was able to help out with the city fire department there. It ended up being about an acre. It had the potential of being much worse than it was, given the location. But that was the largest fire, 1 acre on the 4th of July. And that was within the Cedar City limits. There was no firework-related fires reported on the 4th of July in Iron County.
Wow,
we did have a fire earlier in the day that was a result of a bird and the power lines. The 4th of July, as you guys are aware, are very concerning to me, especially with the large fireworks shows that the town of Bryan Head, Cedar City, and Parowan do, it takes a lot of work to put those shows on, and so the fire departments are so involved with that suppression becomes really difficult just because of the manpower. So there really isn't a good place in Iron County to shoot fireworks. Putting those people into those municipalities where we can concentrate our resources seems to be working really well for us. And then we can augment those fire departments where we can with some of the state and federal resources. So it was a successful year. People, I think, were aware of the conditions. There were some folks in the county that were lighting fireworks, but I know that the Sheriff's Department was making contacts that night, and no firework-related fires in Iron County on the 4th of July. So
Amazing.
that was a good thing. I remember one year we had 24 fires throughout the county in a 24-hour period of time, and when we start running that many fires, we literally run out of resources. And fireworks, of course, are in and around structures, so the potential for catastrophic is very high. So
Yeah.
You know where I live, don't you, Ryan?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I worry about that green belt right there.
I
see these guys using these aerials there, and I just, that green belt that Mesa Hills wraps underneath those homes, if
Yep.
that caught on fire, those homes on that ridge would be really, really
I agree.
danger, right? It'd go fast,
agree.
wouldn't it? Up that
It
hill?
would. It would go
That's
very
what scares
fast.
me, is that area right there.
And with limited resources on the 4th of July, that's a big concern because trying to get people where they need to be. I think it's wise for us to identify some areas within those communities that they can do them safely, and push people into a consolidated area where we can deal with that. Because I mean, I've had people lighting fireworks out to Newcastle Reservoir, up on Right Hand Canyon, and when you start spreading those resources out, something has to give. So
Yeah,
it's
scary.
really concerning. So appreciate the
So
support.
what about, sorry, one more.
No, please.
What about the fire north of the Parowan Gap I heard about?
There was a fire yesterday from the north of the Parowan Gap. It was human caused, currently under investigation. Went to 26 acres on BLM managed ground. Of course, with the wind and the dry conditions yesterday, we were in red flag warnings. We were able to get resources on it really quick. We utilized air resources as well as ground resources to contain that fire, but it certainly had the potential with the conditions yesterday to go catastrophic. But we're ready for it, and we jumped on it really quick and got it taken care of. So
Is it fully contained?
yes, it is fully contained. We had containment on it about 8 o'clock last night. So, and we do have some crews out there today just to make sure that stays in place.
What were the fuels on that fire?
Cheatgrass.
Was cheap.
Yep, the cheatgrass is cured out. Our native grasses are right on the threshold. We're starting to see activity in the native grasses. The sagebrush is still pretty wet, so we're seeing a little reduction in that fire spread when it hits the sagebrush. So we did have a three acre fire out to Page's Ranch on the 4th of July as a result of the bird. And that fire burned in cheatgrass, but was literally going out when it hit the native grasses and the sagebrush due to the moisture involved with them. So those little higher elevations are still yet to come, but down in the valley, especially with the conditions like we've seen the last couple of days, we can expect to see large fire growth. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Dennis Johnson, our TV supervisor, I guess didn't get the message for some reason. Didn't.
Yeah, we emailed him, but we didn't text him, and he's actually on the transmitter down by Canaryville this morning. So
Okay, so I don't know of any TV issues. Dennis does a great job for us and has a number of sites that he manages. I don't know if you have
Called
any.
him last week, and he said things are going good.
Good.
he has overseen that bit of spectrum reduction that we were subject to.
Mm.
I think that's gone smoothly.
From what I hear, it has gone very
At
smoothly.
my house, we just reprogrammed the remote or the TV, and we use it.
Excellent. Yeah, Dennis has a lot of expertise. We appreciate him. And I get a few calls about service, but he immediately takes care of it. So, one thing I'll mention that most people probably don't realize, we've always thought, before we had to get cable or dish, or not had to, but people started getting those, that TV was free. But the county actually provides about $200,000 per year to deliver TV to all the residences in Iron County. So it's not free, but your taxes are paying for it, and it's not something that most people realize. So it does take about $200,000 to keep up with the equipment.
It's good to note
and
too.
everything.
It's a rather sophisticated system,
It is.
and we're tied in with the state network and the affiliates and things, and so Dennis manages all that, does a great job.
Thank you. Okay, Joyce, with our fair. Good morning.
Fair is up and going. Takes a long time to get it ready. The theme this year is Wild Wild West, and we're having a lot of fun with it. As far as the budget goes, I haven't spent most of my money yet, so I can't tell you a whole bunch about it. Sponsors, we're going to be back up to close to what we were last year. We've had a couple of $3,000 sponsors that can't help us this year because of, I don't want to hurt anybody's business with sponsoring, but we've had a couple that said they maybe can do a little bit less, but they can't put $3,000 into it. We picked up National Wrangler, $2,000, which is a help. I have a couple of things. Last year, Search and Rescue, which always does our parking, said if I don't figure out something, we have to find more parking. And so out to the east of the west of the south parking lot. If you know
East of the
where
west of the south. Okay.
East
Side of the south
parking lot.
Okay.
It's a little rough. It hasn't been cleaned off. Preston said he would come out with a grader and kind of try and smooth it off, and Perrin City said that they would try and bush hog it or something so that we would maybe have one more line there. But here's another idea that I have, and I need to see what you guys think about it. We do have the parking lot that's over by the Parowan ball fields, which would host quite a few cars. But it's a ways from the fairgrounds itself. And so I have talked to the county senior citizen people about the van. And they said that as far as they're concerned, we could use that van. Their drivers are part-time, and that creates the issue. Is there a possibility that we can, what can we do about paying those drivers? They said there's 2 of them that would be possible so that we could cut their hours down. If the fair paid their wages, would that change? And do you guys care if we use the van?
I have no problem with using the van.
It would be 5 or 6 hours for at least 2 nights, and it would be nice to have it on Monday, but I don't know when you'd use. I don't know when the times would be.
So probably 2 events that would.
Yeah, the demolition.
So a certain
derby
amount of people would probably just walk from there, but maybe older people or whatever.
See, with the van, you would go from there back around the ball fields, and then we have that gate so it's a very short distance for the van, but they would have to sit and wait for him to come back.
Yeah. So where would they enter for? If they were
We
on
have,
foot,
back where the horse kraals are.
Yeah.
We have a gate right there, so they would just walk right.
Well, that would be manned then in this situation if you use.
It's always manned.
Okay.
It-
Oh wait,
it's the one.
I'm thinking
it's,
on the. Okay.
It's
yeah,
the one that
okay.
comes in by
Okay,
the
yeah, I got
concession
you.
stand.
I got
The
you.
one with the booth.
I got you.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people.
So
would
we
probably
have a walkway that walks right from back behind,
right.
and it walks right up to the ticket booth.
Okay.
Does the would there be enough parking if that easterly area were in better shape, or
If
even with
the
that
Easter, I don't.
the rough one?
It's pretty rough. I mean, I think cars would eventually park out there, but it's not the best solution.
Might get high centered or
Yeah. Preston said he would take the grader and try and grade it off a little bit, but we're out of parking. They're going clear to Center Street on both sides of the roads.
Well, I'll talk to Preston more about that to do what we can there, and there's probably some weeds out there that need to be knocked down anyway for fire and so on. So I'll see what So at least it's there, but then.
And I did talk to Parowan City because it is Parowan City property,
Yeah.
and they said
No problem.
do whatever. I
Okay.
don't care.
Well, so you're talking like 10 hours wages for
Probably
a van
10
driver?
or 12,
I
something
don't
like
think
that. They
I don't
probably
think-
have to start at 5
Oh,
and go till 10 or 11, you know,
think just-
till all of the people that parked out there. And he said maybe they could do it as a volunteer thing, but I don't know whether they can. I don't know whether that's allowed either, is it?
oh.
I knew it wasn't.
10 hours. Just
I knew
put
it wasn't.
Just go ahead and take that out of your budget and
So we would pay their.
go
Mike,
ahead, Mike.
he's shaking his head.
So are they going to be still on a part-time status for that week? Because you
The
can't.
challenge is if you work them too much.
Yeah.
Then it would push them over, and so
Okay,
I
yeah.
know that. And then they said, well, you could get
Cash, I mean. how
you
do
could get
do that?
volunteers yourself to drive the van, but I don't know whether that's legit either to have somebody else.
Over their part-time hours.
Yeah.
If they're just right pushing the ragged edge, then you could push them into a full-time status.
Yeah.
If they have a little bit of a buffer, I think, what is it?
30 hours for the
30
ACA.
hours, but it's on a rolling
It's-
average.
And it
so
depends on what the look back is, because we've
Yeah.
had to do some of our part-time at DMV to cover, especially with what's going, anyway. And if it's really only gonna be for the fair, it shouldn't be a problem. It's just that then, say, 6 months later or 4 weeks later or whatever, they have somebody call in sick and then somebody works a bunch of overtime again, then now they've done it twice in the year and that would push them over. So I would defer probably to Adrian before you.
Yeah. Yeah, talk to Adrian and talk to Curtis with, and see
I've
what.
talked to Curtis,
So maybe he'll.
and he doesn't care, but he doesn't know what to do about the hours.
Yeah, okay.
And he also said, well, maybe we could just get people and pay just Joe Blow, to drive it, but I don't know whether that's liability-wise.
And see if it's a problem or doable.
Okay.
If they're
So talk to
averaging
Adrian.
24 hours a week right now, then it's fine. If they're averaging 29 hours a week,
Then we're in trouble.
probably ought to know.
Well, so the one guy that lives in Parowan, I can't remember his name right now, he acted like he would like to do it and it would be fun. So it'd be easier to just get the one guy to do it twice. But then you're saying,
But then that's adding.
then you're adding like 12 hours.
As far as getting Joe Blow, we'd have certain regulations there. We couldn't just put anybody in our county vehicle.
We
That's a
have
bad
our
idea.
insurance, but we'd have to make sure they had the defensive driving course, and I'm not sure if they're CDL size or not. Yeah, I mean, if
See.
you're driving passengers, that's I know in the private world, that's a whole different realm of insurance requirements.
Yeah. So.
I could visit with USIP as well. Yeah, well, the liability wouldn't change.
Okay.
It's a good solution, but tough on the regulations.
As far as the budget goes, I think we're fine. If you can make that work with everything that we've talked about, then we're fine
It
with it.
wouldn't be a huge,
Wouldn't be a huge budget thing.
you know,
That would be a great
$200
service. So,
or something like that. Anyway, okay, next, Parowan City, I just wanted to tell you that they are putting in a new transformer for us that will split our load. And I talked to Jeremy about it. He has a transformer. He's just going to donate it, and so that's really good. So that'll split our arena side completely off from the other one. So that will be good.
starting to get in trouble at the concessionary not the concession.
Well,
all the
all of our vendors, our current one is taking care of the vendors, but he worries about all of the stuff that anyway.
the north. Yeah.
Anyway, so he's going to put that in for us,
Excellent.
and they have also put sod in front of the bleachers, and so oh my goodness, it looks nice. It really looks good.
And a new roof on our.
And we have a new roof on the
New
new bleachers.
The old new bleachers.
Yeah, and they're really nice. They did put great big old huge, whatever they're called, in front to hold them up in
Pillar.
the front,
Oh.
pillars
Uh-huh.
in the front, and so I have no doubt that I'm going to have people yelling, "I sat here and I can't see."
Well, tell them to be thankful for the shade and the protection from the rain, and we have other bleachers that don't have covers if they want to move there.
I have not heard yet on when our other bleachers will be delivered. The portable ones. They had major crisis in their family, and
Mm.
it's put them back.
But it will be before the fair. I mean, they
They
promised.
promised that they would be here this summer.
Okay, good.
Going back to seeds and weeds, in the infield of the arena this year, we have tons and tons of foxtail and goat heads, which is devastating for horses and animals. Do you have any solutions?
Where is it?
You know, back behind the
So within the
Uh,
track and okay, just
no, yeah, within
mean-
the track, but back behind
back behind the
the
bucking
announcer
chute.
stand. You know, back behind our arena.
Maybe you could go help us
Yeah.
burn.
Yeah.
What?
Well, yeah, maybe Ryan can help us burn. So it hadn't even been mowed,
Parowan City mowed it,
Has been.
which is the first time it's been mowed for.
but it's just got all that stuff.
But it's got
Okay.
goat heads everywhere, and foxtail. Ooh.
I'll talk to Ryan about possibly being able to burn that when on the day when the conditions are good. That should take care of that, hopefully.
What about the goat heads? Would they?
Well, they will
goat heads
burn. They'll burn. I mean, they should.
Are they dry or are they green?
They're dry,
Yeah, they should burn.
and they
depending
stick
on,
in my shoes every time I walk
yeah,
out there.
depending on the fuel load around. Depending if there's enough foxtail with them, they'll burn. I assume. But if they don't burn, I don't know. I guess we could till it some way and maybe till it.
I don't know how. Oh yeah, but
But
then that
yeah.
causes dust. I don't know.
Well,
it's
after
really
we till, and we have a water wagon, so we could after we tilled it, we could run the water wagon over it. That would be a
Benson's
problem.
made me go out there and to show me, and they just said
Yeah.
for horses this is
Yeah.
devastating. It's awful.
Good year for water, but a bad year for all the weeds and
Yeah.
so on. So we'll work on that.
Digital sign. I'm excited about it. Marshall Evans has volunteered to put it up. I still haven't heard from the engineer on how big the footings need to be so that we.
Right here.
Oh, hey.
I need to talk to you.
Okay, there we go. Maybe I have heard. Anyway, so we're putting that sign up, and we'll dig a trench and hook it up, and Marshall Evans has looked at all that, and so that'll be good.
Great.
There's another. Oh, I've asked Dutchlander to be the Grand Marshal. He's really excited about it. His daughter has sent a picture of him and written up his little thing, and I think that he was really excited. Our theme this year is Wild Wild West, and so I'm asking you guys if this is okay. For the county float, it's just fun. And so we're making it into a jail, an old jail. And we wanted all of the elected officials to be in jail.
With striped clothing, I'm sure.
And the
So instead of candy,
commissioners-
we're going to hand out rotten tomatoes? Or?
and that kind of stuff. And the commissioners to be walking behind it with.
Oh, good. We don't have to be in jail. Awesome.
You don't have to be in jail. With a thing that says sheriff and a big cowboy hat, one of those great big funny
Fine
hats.
by me. Wait.
So they're going to deputize us that day. Huh?
Yeah. And then I was wondering if the sheriff could maybe pull it.
I
With the
think you
sheriff
could.
card.
Yeah, I'll give him a call.
So, I mean,
Elected
so
officials,
are
how
we
do you
making-
feel about being in jail? They're all got their heads down. They're not responding.
I like being in jail, but I think you should be in jail with us. We should all be sheriffs because we are all elected. And there's already perception that you're bosses.
So I just,
Yes, that's my.
well, and we could do that. And what do you think? Because it's kind of mocking, making fun. That you guys need to be in jail too. What do you think? It'll just be funny.
Oh, hey,
I'm
that's what the
Are
fair.
you okay with it?
I'm game, whatever you want to do.
That's what the fair is about, isn't it? Having fun, bringing everybody
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Okay. Mike had already said he didn't care, but I hadn't talked to the other two. Okay.
3 women in my home would get a kick out of that.
I think the commissioner should be in jail.
And then you guys be on the outside? Well, we could do that.
Or-
Whatever works.
Okay. Okay, so that's approved. Any other questions that you have? Things seem to be going higher and higher, just saying. I try as hard as I can. The new current thing is, yes, I'll come for $1,000 plus a room. So that's a lot of where my increase is coming. Is I'm already full as much as I can be in the Parowan Motel. I'm sending people to Cedar already. I went down and talked to, what is the one? Motel 6? Is that the one? That's in
Center
the
interchange, middle interchange.
middle
Yeah,
interchange. I
okay.
went and looked at the rooms and they looked fine. And they've agreed to give me somewhat of a discount. I feel, so don't tell me ever that that the Iron County Fair doesn't provide beds and heads and beds, whatever it is, because it's full. I tried.
Oh, absolutely it does.
Any other questions?
Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It'll
tried-
be
we
another
tried
great
hard.
fair.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate the report, Joyce. Thank you. Okay, saw George come in. Do you have anything, George, to report? I know it's not your day to report, but if you have anything about the
I just came in
outage.
with that interlocal agreement with Cedar, just in case you had any questions about that or any of the other.
Later on the agenda.
Okay, now, yeah, well, that'll be coming. Do you have anything regarding the outage? Any
I
update?
stayed in touch with the state. I got a text early this morning from Parowan Police Chief saying that you guys were back on it 0300 this morning, and I forwarded that to the state. I've been keeping the state. I just got called out just a minute ago from the state, appreciating Iron County keeping them informed of the situation, and that the governor was reading those reports, and so
Good.
in good shape.
I believe they're running off of a backup or a portable substation, so I know everything isn't. But-
And yeah, they're still, I guess, looking for those parts to repair that substation so that you can make the permanent switch. And you and I've been trading texts this weekend. I've got a call into Tom Heaton about sitting down with him and all of us and discussing crisis communications going forward.
Very good. Thank you. Paul Briggs, good to have you here from BLM. Do you have anything for us? We got a couple of minutes.
I don't. I'm just here for information.
Okay. Good to have you here always. We appreciate it and hope that you have a good fire season. I know there's a lot of fuel.
So good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. Well,
Did
John.
you address those minutes?
we do. And I even had that circle.
Okay.
Thank you very much for reminding me. I had it circled, but I didn't see him look at
Oh,
my
that's all right.
Okay, well, we do have minutes of the meetings of May 13th and May 28th, 2019. So I'd entertain a motion regarding those.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 13th, 2019, as well as May 28th, 2019.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Iron County Commission minutes of May 13th, 2019 and May 28th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Okay, we will take a break until 10 a.m. and go into our public appointments at that time. Thank you. I'm not ready.
Whenever
up.
you're ready.
Okay. Gotta get my screen up again. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Welcome back. We are reconvened. Sorry for we went over past 10 a.m. First item on the agenda for public appointments is the public comment period. 3-minute time limit per speaker for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please come forward to the microphone and state your name.
My name is William Pressgrove. First thing I want to say is that on tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the library, there is a seminar on the Principles of Liberty, Principles 5 and 6. All things are created by God, and all men are created equal. So if you'd like to be there, it's a good way for you to learn your responsibilities as a sovereign.
Which library?
The Cedar City Library. Library in the park. Okay? And then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the book that I gave to you. It's called The 5,000 Year Leap. I venture to say that nobody's cracked it and it's probably gathering some dust. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a enticement. Under Principle 7, which is a proper role of government, it says the founders recognize that the people cannot delegate to their government the power to do anything except that which they have the lawful right to do themselves. For example, if a person were entitled to protection of his life and property, therefore, it is perfectly legitimate to delegate to the government the task of setting up a police force to protect the lives and property of all the people. It goes on to say that the American founders recognized that the moment that government is authorized to start leveling material possessions of the rich in order to have, quote, an equal distribution of goods, end quote, the government thereafter has the power to deprive any of the people of their equal rights to enjoy their lives, liberties, and property. So, if you will take a look at the county code and what it's doing, it is taking away the rights of some people and, in favor of others. In regard to the farm stands, it's the carrot and stick. The carrot is tax deduction for individuals that want to have a farm stand, which I don't blame them. I would too. But the stick is the county then has to put into play a regulation that covers everybody, and nobody gets to do anything unless the county says that they can. That's the stick. I can't do that. As a citizen, I can't take the rights of these other people away and tell them that if you want a tax rebate or a tax deduction, you can have a farm stand. I can't do that as an individual. If I can't do it as an individual, the state and the county should not be able to do it either. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there further comments from the public?
Good morning. My name is Mike Sherritt. I'll be a little more on the topic probably. I just wondered about on the Beltway. Is this the right time to talk about this?
You can now, yes. We'll probably give. We don't have a public hearing on that today. It will be our next item, and we'll allow people to speak. But go ahead and use your public comment time.
I can wait.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. My concern, a couple of things in the Beltway was the Beltway route is going to cut some of the property into pieces. My concern is are we going to, is there going to be consideration for getting livestock on both sides of that Beltway? Is there going to be fencing to keep them off the road? Who's going to be responsible for that? And some curiosity of who is work with as far as the acquisition process goes. I was a little concerned about the last meeting I was present in when the city councils and the mayors met with the county, and there was so much discussion about eminent domain and condemning property, and I wondered, you know, how you guys feel about that process.
Okay, I'm going to take your comment now, and then where it's the next item on the agenda, we'll answer your questions.
Okay.
And I've written them down, and if we miss any of them, you be sure and raise your hand and tell us. But we'll answer all those questions in just a moment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. We appreciate it. Any other comments from the public? If actually at this time, if your comment is regarding the belt route, if you'll hold those, and we'll do that as part of that agenda item. But if there's any other comments on any other item, please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Shapley. I am a resident of Cedar City, and I live in the Mid-Valley Estates neighborhood. And recently we've had a lot of issues with people that live in that area speeding up and down the road. It's caused quite a concern with my kids that play in my yard. And there is currently, I believe, about 5 stop signs in that neighborhood. And I would think it would help to put more stop signs on our streets, throughout intersections, on roads between 2700 and 3100 west, and from Mid-Valley Road up to 5400 north, and the side streets.
Say that again. What north?
5400 north to Mid-Valley, which is 4800 north, 3100 west to 2700 west.
Okay, got it. We will definitely contact our road department, and we do studies on those kind of things, and our law enforcement, so we can step up our law enforcement on that. So
Right.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. We want to keep your kids and everybody safe out there. Thank you so much. Any other comments?
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Bruce Washburn. I went looking for the natural resource management plan that the county put together a couple of years ago, and I can't find it on the website, and I wondered if that could be placed there.
Mike Worthen put that together. Do we have that on the website?
I can't find it if it's there.
Well, and maybe we could put it a little more front and center too.
Because the other plan,
if it is, it's hard to find.
two planning documents are on the front page, down in the lower right-hand corner, and I didn't find the.
Okay, John, will you follow up on that?
I will follow up on that.
And then just as a comment on the general plan, I looked at that. I hadn't read that before, and I kind of started reading through it. And it's from 1995, and I realized it was revised in 2005, but even that was almost 15 years ago. So a number of the items in the document are outdated, and I wondered if there was any plan to revise the general plan.
Trying to think, well, I guess you'd stated the date of the last general plan update, but you brought it to our attention. It's something we need to look at for sure, and get that updated. So
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thank you. And then on another comment, I see we joined the American Lands Council again. I spoke about that at the budget hearing in December, and I was told it was a placeholder and it wasn't decided where that would be. And suddenly now we've spent the money, and so I wondered if we could.
We did decide to do that. Felt good about that expenditure.
Okay.
They've taken a much softer approach in transferring public land that states would do that incrementally, and and take more time and so on, and would just do it as it made common sense to do so, and at a rate that the state could take it over without causing a lot of economic disruption and so on. So we're definitely, as a commission, are in favor of more local control of the lands. I don't think that there will be much sale of public lands, though there are public lands for sale right now. The BLM has many parcels right in this county that are, that are for disposal. But I think it's going to be more a situation of moving from federal control to state control over a number of years. So we are in favor of that as a commission. So that's why we went ahead and with the membership to the Lands Council, American Lands Council.
My concern is they just aren't very visible anymore. They have a website, but very little activity on it. Their social media presence is almost gone. And I looked at their last tax return, Form 990, which is available to the public. It was from 2016, and it showed a substantial decrease over the years of membership, it appears. And I looked at in the transparency website for the state, it appears that only 6 counties in Utah are currently participating with them. So I just think maybe we're missing the boat here, and they're not going to be strong enough to be any power, and we should probably look at spending that money elsewhere. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, review and possible approval of the Cedar Valley Belt Route Alignment, Iron County Transportation Master Plan Amendment, an element of the Iron County General Plan, recommendations from Horrocks Engineers, Iron County Planning Commission, and Iron County Transportation Rural Planning Organization. Reed Erickson, our county planner, will introduce this subject. And as I said, this is not a public hearing. We've had the public hearings on this issue already. But we will allow some public comment.
Morning, Commissioners.
And we will answer Mr. Sherritt's question.
And then go to recommended alignment on the bottom there. Yeah. You can see from the story map here, and let me just do a brief update on a reminder that we have had this on the commission agenda, I think, for the last 3 meetings in a row, and we have held public hearing here and at the Planning Commission level. We have also vetted this through the Rural Planning Organization, and both the technical committee and the executive council, in terms of reviewing this and trying to determine its purpose, its need, its scope, and to try to understand how we do planning in a way that tries to help the most people going forward in the future, identifying something that we know that we will need in the future without adversely affecting too many people. We know that every time you draw a line on a map and every time you plan for something, it affects somebody. And it will probably affect somebody adversely. And that's unfortunate. It's a difficult thing to try to balance that, and the purpose of this process is to try to balance that and do it in a way that we can identify these things as early as we can so that it will be more beneficial in the future, and try to minimize the adverse impacts it has on more people in the future, so that we can identify a corridor that will make sense for the future without then affecting those people in the future, because they know that it will be there, recognizing that it does affect someone now. I also remind you that this is just a plan. It isn't an attempt to enter into design and construction and acquisition right away. It's an attempt to get an alignment on the paper, on the map, on our master plan and general plan, transportation plan, so that as development occurs, as opportunities for land development and sale continues, that people become aware that this is the planned route for the Belt Route in the future, so that those decisions can be made based on the idea that there will be a future road here. We don't know when the road will be built. It may be 20 years, it may be 30 years, it may be 10 years. A lot depends on our growth and at the point that that road becomes needed. So with that introduction, we went about, just as a reminder, that we hired Horrocks Engineering to take a kind of a technical look at this outside of the scope of politics and say, what makes sense based on the land, the people who are there, the current land uses, the need for the future, and try to figure out what the best alignment is and make a recommendation based on that the Planning Commission considered, and then held a public hearing and enter in, the comments and concerns of property owners in the area. So it becomes political at the level that it becomes a legislative decision, where the consultants look at it primarily from the perspective that what just makes best on the land, what's there, current land uses, areas to construct, ease of construction, efficiency of alignment, and all of those considerations. We had a representative from Horrocks Engineering, Aaron Baker, here a couple of weeks ago or so, and well, I guess it was a month ago, and made their recommendations, explained what those things were and the purposes of those choices. We've had this story map online for several months, and it gets tweaked a little bit as we've evaluated certain areas, and we've zoomed in and looked closer at certain areas and determined the priority that we'd given on how disturbance would occur, where we tried to give the highest priority to existing residential uses and the most uses, and try to affect the fewest amount of people that are currently there as possible. And then to agriculture, and then to other uses. So in that hierarchy is where the decisions were made and the recommendations, and what brought us to the point that we're at now. I also want to introduce Dave Demas. Dave is with Five County and helping with the RPO, and has been instrumental in helping us get to this point. The goal originally was to just figure out how to get from Highway 56 at 5700 West, where the south leg is already constructed, how to get around the west and north side of the valley back out to I-15 with the least amount of disturbance and with the most future potential for the straightest and safest route that would carry traffic in the future around the valley, and try to disperse traffic and alleviate congestion as we build and as we grow. And that's the alignment that you see on the board currently is what we've come up with. And so I know that we've given a lot of considerations to different options and to different possibilities, and we've had a lot of people involved in the process. So at some point, we need to move to the next step and adopt the alignment and then move forward. I would like to identify a couple of things that will follow with the adoption of the alignment. The next things that we will do to help with moving forward after the adoption of the alignment is that we would work on what we're calling an access management plan. We would adopt a process that identifies where access can occur on the belt route, where the major intersections would be located, and where access could be granted along the belt route, so that people know what to expect and how they could access the belt route. Because it's a belt route, it's not a local street. It doesn't have driveways and accesses coming off of it at every property. There has to be limited access on this. It's anticipated to be a 100-foot 4-lane road in the future, and similar to the south leg that goes from Highway 56 down to the Canaryville interchange at Hamilton Fort. That is a 100-foot right-of-way, constructed now with 2 lanes, but with a possibility of 4 or 5 lanes if we have a center turning lane. And that 100-foot right-of-way, based on the topography that we have throughout this alignment, should provide adequate right-of-way to build a 4 or 5 lane road, anticipated to carry traffic at 50, 55 miles an hour for a belt route. So part of that concern, and it goes much to Mr. Sherritt's questions about fencing and acquisition process and how things will occur as we move forward. That's what the tools that we would develop. First, the access management plan that would identify where the belt route could be accessed, and then the second tool would be the acquisition strategy, or the process through which we would acquire rights of way. How much we would buy, how much we would expect to be granted as development occurred, when we would do that, when somebody's ready to move forward, those decisions have not been made yet, and those are things that we now will work on once we have an alignment adopted, so that then we can concentrate on that and identify where those things could occur, so that we could then develop that acquisition strategy. So those are the two main tools that we would now work on and try to get implemented and adopted through the commission to help say this is how this can be carried forward and implemented.
Okay, specifically fencing.
So fencing, and we would anticipate fencing to occur when we may acquire right-of-way without fencing, but there wouldn't be any there would be fencing done at the time that we would do any disturbance or that we would make any changes to the land. You know, that we would start grubbing or doing anything there that would affect a property owner from past uses of the property is the time that we would anticipate fencing, is the way it was done at 5700 on the south leg. Is once we acquired the right-of-way, the fencing on that right-of-way was built by the prison crew for the most part, wasn't it?
What fence there is, normally we install fencing, excuse me, as part of the construction project, if it's needed.
I think the whole southern leg is fenced, isn't it, on both?
No.
There are some people that
there are
didn't
sections
require.
Okay. Because development hasn't occurred, there's not any
there's not livestock
land uses or anything that's presented the need for that.
I need to drive that again. I thought. Okay.
There are quite a few pieces that are not fenced.
And what about livestock trails?
Usually from 1400 north to 5600. I mean, 56 highway is not fenced on.
Okay. But on this new leg, what about dealing with livestock trails? That was one of the questions that Mr. Sherritt asked about.
Yeah, I think that there would have to be a provision for continuing the livestock trail on 3600 north. Is that where it is now, Mike? It's 3600 north is the major crossing that we would have now, and there would have to be a provision there to be able to continue to maintain those livestock trails.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Are you folks here regarding this? If you would like to speak, you're welcome to come forward and state your name, please. If you'd please come to the microphone and state your name.
Commissioners, I'm Roger Bang, and I live out by Three Peaks area, but my concern is the people who you're putting this road through. What about the people who can't get access to it because their property is landlocked, kind of like, because where they're got now, they got a road they can go through, but you put your road through, their property is on one side of the property, but there's no access to their property. Do you put another frontage road in for them so they can get out of their property?
I know when the freeway came through here, whenever there was access interrupted or denied, then a frontage road was provided. So I'm sure we'd have to do something like that. I don't think there's any way we could deny anybody.
Okay, but whose property did they take, and how do you pay for it, or are you just going to take it from them? That means you're cutting their property down. They have 20 acres, and you're already taking 100 feet of it. Then you're going to take another 60 feet for the roads, so they're down to nothing now. Who pays for that?
We don't anticipate any eminent domain on this. Hopefully it'll be willing seller, willing buyer. Some of the portions of the southern belt route that is finished were actually donated because people wanted the road badly. They figured it would help their situation for future development and so on. So, but we would not take anything by eminent domain. I don't think that's our idea at all on this.
Because they tried on my property once. So I'm just asking. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Jean Baltus, and on the recommended estimate, it says that the right-of-way is 150 foot, and everything I hear from these folks is 100 foot, and I'd really like to know, which is it? Thank you.
Everything I've heard is 100 feet. Anything different, Reed?
100 feet. I don't know where the 150
Okay.
It's in the PDF.
In the estimate,
Yes.
yeah. The consultants, I think, identified a couple of places where they felt like maybe 150 foot on the slope may be necessary, but our anticipation is 100 feet is what was planned.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this item?
Hello, my name's Todd Baltus. This is probably a bit early, but we live at the end of 4000. They recently changed the proposed route. It ran more toward Lund. Now it's running around our property. It's probably a better location for it, but we don't like it. I'm mainly interested in asking, similar to the livestock access, Three Peaks is behind us. 4000 is a major road for kids, horses, bicycles to get to Three Peaks. What are you going to do about access to Three Peaks? You're going to have this road cutting across Mid-Valley and 4000.
Reed, can you answer that question?
And those are good questions, and we have a lot of those questions. We've had that question of what kind of intersection are you going to do, you know, at Minersville Highway and the Belt Route? What kind of intersection are you going to do at Lund? What kind of intersection are you going to do at Iron Springs Road, at 4000 North? There's a lot of major intersections that we're going to have, and those have not been planned yet or designed, whether some of them end up being roundabouts or stop signs, or what kind of design we're going to have when we have a road coming in on an angle, whether we bring that in so that we can have 90 for a four-way intersection. Those are things that will have to come at design level when we get closer to that and start looking at design and how the road will be built. And that's where we would accommodate, driveways and people's access to property so that we can ensure that everybody still has access to their property. Those are things that are down the road a little bit, and we can't answer all those questions yet because we haven't gotten to the detail of design yet. So, but those are ones that we're aware of and that we would put in.
Two roads, mainly 4000. I'm talking, young children.
Yeah. Riding bikes, a lot of bicyclers and
horses.
Yep. Yeah, it's an area of concern, 4000, and how it transitions right here on this corner, it is a concern. And, that's going to take some design work to make that happen at the time that we get ready to look at it more close on the ground.
Sir, was your concern that some of these would actually be cut off? Yeah. Okay, and I think it would be safe to say that any major route, there will be no plan to cut those off.
They're important routes.
Important.
Yeah, and any of those ones that are used roads for residential to serve the area, make provisions for those so people have access to their property and continue to use them as they have.
Okay. Are there other comments regarding this issue? Okay, seeing none. Is there further discussion from the commission?
Mr. Sherritt, you asked a question about eminent domain. Would you repeat that question?
I was just concerned about the discussion that occurred in the previous meeting I was at. It sounded to me like we were actually setting a plan to use eminent domain during that discussion that occurred at that meeting. That was
At the previous hearing, the public hearing on this?
Yeah, you were there, the commission was there, the city commissioners were there, the mayors of each of the cities were there.
The coordinating council?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Is that the one?
That's the topic that it opened with, and it caught me a little flat-footed. I was like, whoa, this doesn't sound well to me. And we would take that much time to discuss an issue that I would hope wouldn't occur.
Right.
I was just concerned if that was, in the comments that have been made, it sounds to me like that's not really the direction you're headed.
No, well, that wouldn't be mine. I mean, I will disclose that as a member of the Cedar City Council, I did vote for an eminent domain. I never thought in a million years I'd vote for an eminent domain issue, but I did on this one. It was a major sewer line that we were running out, and it was an issue. Every property owner, were very cooperative, but we had two property owners. We had to cross, I think, about 150 feet each of their property. It was a sewer line that was about 15 feet deep. There were no manholes on their property. It was on property lines. We agreed to make them whole, eliminated $1 million expense to the taxpayer, eliminated 2 lift stations, which are very risky and expensive. If they fail, it can fill people's homes with sewage. And I did vote for that eminent domain because I couldn't see where it affected these people at all in the future. We made them, we agreed to make them whole. They were not farming that property. It actually adds a lot of value to their land, having that utility go through there, and so I did vote for that on that one.
So our purpose in this forward planning is, as Reed said, we want everybody to know where this route is, so as time goes on, they can plan for that. And I guess I can't 100% say that there would never be an eminent domain. That is definitely not our plan to do that. We don't have any desire to do that. It's like an item of very last resort. But hopefully, with the plan in place, the route in place, and the landowners adjacent knowing that those kind of things will not be necessary. But thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, please.
Maybe I can offer just a little bit of information on the first 6 miles.
State your name and your position,
yes, I'm sorry,
so the public will know.
My name is Steve Platt. I'm the Iron County engineer. On the first 6 miles of this belt route, which the southern leg, which we've built, 20 acres that was needed for right-of-way was donated by Cordero, where they have purchased 2,000 acres of the Thorley property, and someday they'll have a big development. They wanted a road. The other total acquisition was 53 acres. So if you take the 20 away, we had 33 acres that were actually purchased for just about $950,000 on those 33 acres. So everything was either purchased or donated on the previous 6 miles.
Thank you for that information.
In fact, it might be useful, maybe Reed, to discuss the Corridor Preservation Fund and how that works. I mean, is that okay?
Please, yeah, please. Thanks, Sean.
Part of the forward thinking of the commission over 10 years ago was to put in place the collection of $10 per registration on every vehicle, so that money could be set aside for the planning of rights-of-way and acquisition of rights-of-way. That was a process that was initiated by the state legislature that provided the ability for counties to collect that fee, so that rights-of-way could be planned for and acquired when they're less expensive and when they're available, and to help identify future road rights-of-way. It's called the Local Corridor Preservation Fund, and the county has had that in place, I think, for about 10 years. I think it came in 2007 maybe, and so maybe 12 years.
That sounds correct.
And they've collected a fair amount of money. I think there's a little over $3 million in that fund right now, and we have spent over $1 million in that fund on different projects. Cedar City, in fact, later on this agenda, there's an item to authorize the expenditure of $600,000 for rights-of-way acquisition for the improvement of roads in Cedar City, widening of the roads, and so it's in Cedar City's used it several times, and Cedar Highlands used it recently, and it's available to cities in the county to acquire rights-of-way for road development in the future. And so it's a good tool that the commission put in place years ago with the anticipation that we need to plan ahead and acquire rights-of-way when they become available. We have done some of that without the Corridor Preservation Fund, just by planning and knowing that we were going to have a belt route in the future. That there's a section there on 5700 West where we've through the design, you see where the solar development is up, yeah, right there, John, where your cursor is. Made provisions. We knew that there was a major transportation need along this side of this property line, and so the developers, in their permitting of this process, set back 50 feet from that so that we could put this belt route along here. They preserved a 100-foot corridor across here at 2400 North, because we knew that was a major east-west corridor that could tie into the belt route. So these planning transportation issues are are helpful as development occurs so that we can make preservation for future roads and make sure that we preserve property, and it's helped out on the north as well, on 6400 North, where there's a major solar development, that they would preserve a 100-foot corridor. So it's part of the planning process that helps as development occurs, and it's a good tool.
So Reed, before you leave, just for the record, I want to make sure if we move to approve this today, I want to just for the record, I know that there's some property owners that are very concerned, whether they're small or large property owners, they're concerned about the access management plan that you're talking about, that's the next step. Obviously, there's some of these people that have plans for their property, and this can actually negatively impact their property values and their plans. And so, for the record, I want you to state that you're willing to give the property owners a seat at the table in forming this access management plan because it's going to affect their values and their properties. Are you willing to
absolutely
work with them?
Yeah, we would invite any participation, landowner participation, as we develop these tools that make sense and that will, of course, be approved by you. And so, you know, you will want to be comfortable that they've had and been vetted through that process, and they will go to the Planning Commission for recommendation, I expect, and we would do those through your adoption, so we would ensure that there's a public process there and would involve those people.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Reed. Would you like to make further comment? Ma'am, please come forward.
Yes.
Would you remind us your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Jean Baltus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is terrible. I just I just lost my comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. We all do that, don't we? All have brain freezes from time to time. So just take your time, and we're good.
To further what you were just talking to Reed about, I would like to see the property owners listed as stakeholders, because we are. There's all of these entities listed. You know, this city, this board, that board. I don't know who the rural planning board is, but I'd like to see the property owners along the route listed as stakeholders. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys or not, but it does to me. And I also, it's looked to me when I've been going over the routes and such, that the data that we're using or were used on this, the GIS data is old, because you won't see houses on several of the times the routes were changed because there's a house there, but it doesn't show on the data that they're using. And I'm a little confused by why they wouldn't use the latest, greatest data.
Did we not have the...
So there is...
Yeah.
Okay.
There's more current sometimes available, but not at the level that they can use for their planning tools. And so we've incorporated some of what the county had for the parcel data, and then the land layers that they used in their GIS is just what most current was available to them.
Okay.
But regarding homes and things, we've addressed all of that, right?
We've gone out of ground truth, all of those, to make sure when we became aware that maybe there were some things, we went back out on the ground and tried to verify.
Right.
Yeah, I was a little surprised,
Yeah,
because
we were
there's a building boom going on, and you're running the road right through a couple of places nearby. All right.
Well, ma'am, and that's why we're having to do this now, so we're way ahead of the game, so we can plan around this as we go forward. So, like Commissioner Adams said.
Thanks for your comments. Are there any other folks that would like to come forward and comment? Okay. Any further discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the Cedar Valley Belt Route alignment. This is the Iron County Transportation Master Plan Amendment, an element of the Iron County General Plan. And this is a plan that Horrocks Engineers, along with our county engineer and Reed Erickson, have put together in conjunction with our Iron County Transportation Rural Planning Organization. I'd also like to add to my motion that we include property owners and allow them to have a seat at the table, especially when we talk about the access management plan moving forward.
And so the alignment you're doing is the one that's currently presented on the story map?
Correct, yes.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Cedar Valley Belt Route alignment as presently on the story map, and that and all the other particulars as stated in the motion, and that we will involve property owners in the process going forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much, everyone, for your involvement. And obviously, this is a very ongoing project, but I think we've made great progress, and we've done a great thing today. And so people will know where it's going to be, and then they can plan. Planning is so important to our future. Thank you very much.
Could I ask one more thing?
You could, sir. If you want to come forward.
Just asking. Okay. My name's Todd Baltus. At least on my computer, the story map has been a little bit difficult. I've gotten it to work. Even right now, if you go on the recommended alignment, you get this. But if you go down to those 4 bullet points, you get the old alignment.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, I'll have the consultants update
okay.
that.
Would you put up the recommended alignment as a photo, as a PDF that could be downloaded?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think that's a good thing to do.
Thank you for that clarification. Excellent. Item 3, discussion and possible approval of a single event permit, local consent for Red Acre Center, Red Acre Gather celebration on August 3rd, 2019.
Cimbria Patterson?
Yeah.
Cimbria
Please
Patterson.
state your, okay. Thank you.
I own Red Acre Farm, the property where that event will be held, but it is a nonprofit that's hosting a fundraiser, and it's a request for a local consent for the DABC, Department of Alcohol Beverage Services. That's it.
So an Department of Alcohol and Beverage permit for that single activity.
They'll grant it, but the local you have to have local
consent for that. Okay. Any discussion? Seems to be pretty cut and dried.
I'll move to approve the single event permit located on the Red Acre Farms, right? But the Red Acre Gather celebration on August 3rd, 2019.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the single event permit for the DABC. I hope I got that acronym right. Local consent for Red Acre Center, Red Acre Gather celebration August 3rd, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 4. Oh,
can we?
I'll sign that.
She's on a time constraint.
Awesome job. Thank you. Item number 4. Ratification of a vehicle transfer. A 2005 Dodge Durango was transferred from fire to the tourism department. Ryan mentioned this in his report this morning. So he's used that Dodge Durango in the fire department, and they've cleaned it up, and the tourism department has need of it. So if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to ratify the transfer of a 2005 Dodge Durango from the fire to the tourism department.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we ratify the transfer of a vehicle, 2005 Dodge, from fire to tourism. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 5, approval of items on a vehicle surplus list. Once approved, the vehicles will be listed on public surplus website. And we've got that on our computer. And John's not here. He's going to have to switch us off of that. Well, I guess we can switch off here. Okay, we're going to that list right now. Okay. You have comments regarding that list, John?
No.
Okay. Have 10 vehicles of various kinds that we're putting on the surplus list to be surplus. So, do you have any questions on that? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I guess I do have one little quick thing to say, which
Okay,
is
please.
we're going to actually change the procedure this time and use the website as recommended last time when we had the discussion, if you recall. We had done kind of a silent sealed bid auction in-house, and we're gonna go ahead and try and do the website. So.
Okay, excellent.
What's that website called?
Oh, I can never remember.
All right, that's okay. Well, I'll move to approve the items, the 10 vehicles listed on this surplus list. And once we approve this, if we do, they'll be listed on the website that we're not sure of yet, but you've used it before.
So yeah, it's government surplus.
That's okay.
Government surplus website, yeah, I think explains it. Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve for sale the items on the vehicle surplus list, and they will be placed on the public surplus web page when after approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
No, that's enough to act for us.
We are good. Item 6, local corridor preservation fund expenditure approval. This is reimbursement for the Cedar City Corporation acquisition of abandoned Union Pacific Railway property. The amount is $601,689.77. This was the railway corridor that was abandoned. I think it was a little over a mile, where it used to come clear into downtown, and now it terminates a mile west of that. And it was important for Cedar City to acquire this. It will be a great benefit to the whole community going forward. So, any comments?
I need to disclose a potential conflict on this because I'm serving on the city council, finishing my term, and so we've dealt with this in the city council as well. So I don't think there's an issue as far as conflict, but I just want to disclose that.
Okay, thanks for that disclosure, and I don't think there's a problem.
So with that disclosure, I will move to approve this local corridor preservation fund expenditure as a reimbursement for the Cedar City Corporation acquisition of the abandoned Union Pacific Railway property, totaling $601,689.77, and that's the final cost. And this expenditure was previously approved by the Iron County Council of Governments.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the local corridor preservation fund expenditure as explained in the amount of $601,689.77. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 7, possible approval of the Paragoula Spring Triathlon, a one-day and nonprofit event. Also a request to waive the fee for said triathlon to be held on July 20th, 2019. I have absolutely no problem with this, except have we waived the fee in the past? Okay, we have. So we've done that in the past, and that's a great event.
I had a question on this waiving of fees. To me, that's always a really slippery slope, because when you start waiving fees, where do you draw the line? Who do you approve in the future? Who you don't? I mean, what's been the basis? I mean, I guess you told me earlier, John, that was because it's a nonprofit.
Yeah, that's my understanding in the past.
So
well, and we have a precedent of when it's government. Well, is this Paragoula Town, or it's a non? I guess it's not Paragoula Town. It's a nonprofit. Okay. So I know when we go from public entity to public entity, we usually always waive the fees, but we have done that for nonprofit.
In and out of jurisdictions, municipalities.
Have we waived them for this particular organization before?
We have, and I think this is about their 3rd or 4th year. So.
So I guess with that, I guess where the precedent's been set, I'll move to approve the Paragoula Spring Triathlon. It's a one-day nonprofit event, and also move to waive the fee for said triathlon to be held on July 20th, 2019.
Seconded. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Paragoula Spring Triathlon one-day event and to waive the fee for that triathlon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. You sign it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Item 8, discussion and possible approval of a Three Peaks Recreation and Public Purposes lease with United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, and Iron County. This will be presented by Mike Worthen, our Natural Resources Supervisor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike Worthen with Natural Resources. This is more of a technicality. If you recall, last fall, the Commission approved moving forward with an application for a patent for Three Peaks. It was a RNPP lease where after several years and going through planning, we can apply for patent on that. The problem we had is that we didn't realize the patent had, or the lease had expired, and BLM needs the lease to be in place before they can process the patent. So what I'm requesting here today is that the Commission approve the lease so we can move forward with the patent application.
Okay, sounds very cut and dried. Thanks for your follow-up on this, and sorry with the BLM that we, I guess both those, we allowed that to run out. But that Three Peaks has been a smashing success, and so I'm glad we're moving forward with this.
I'll move to approve the Three Peaks Recreation and Public Purposes lease with the United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, Iron County.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Three Peaks Recreation Public Purposes lease with the BLM. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Sign that.
Hey, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you're the witness, I presume.
Okay, so I guess these are the ones we really want, though.
Okay.
But I'll sign this one, too. Will you make sure we get one of these? Yeah. Is that what that second one? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Item number 9, discussion and possible approval of a disaster interlocal agreement between Cedar City Corporation and Iron County. Who was speaking to this item, John, or am I getting in a hurry before you're done with it?
Eve, it was George Colson.
Hey, George.
I wonder why George.
I can speak to it if we need it.
Okay. Let's see.
Thank you. Okay, would you like me to speak to that one?
Yeah, if you would, please, John.
Okay, so this is an agreement that defines operating procedures during a disaster. It also gives us permission, or the state to permission to know all of our resources and their allocations, so that they can make a broader plan in a broader disaster. I really wish George were here to speak to this because he could do it more justice.
What I know
Go
of
ahead.
it is this: we've had these gone around to various entities with a similar agreement. if there's a disaster, we can call upon aid of each other to respond to disaster, and we don't, if we were to respond to a disaster in Cedar City and there was some sort of liability that was incurred, they would agree to indemnify us and hold us harmless for responding to a disaster that they asked us to come aid them in. I think that's the main purpose.
Yeah. And I apologize. I thought this was a different agreement. Yeah.
Okay. And Cedar City has approved this. We have signature of Mayor Wilson on this document. So looks like we're ready to go.
Making the same disclosure that I also am wearing 2 hats here with Cedar City Council. I think it was a great, when we discussed it there, I thought it was a great idea, and I think it's applicable and a benefit to both entities. So I would move to approve the disaster interlocal agreement between Cedar City Corporation and Iron County.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the disaster interlocal agreement between Cedar City Corporation and Iron County. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all who have worked on that. Item 10, discussion and possible approval of a letter of recommendation regarding a conservation easement in the Deep Creek area north of Miners Peak. I can speak to that if I can remember the gentleman's name. Brian called me the other day.
Higby?
Brian Higby, yeah, he's a Cedar City native, doesn't live here now, but he and 2 other folks have property totaling over 800 acres in the Deep Creek area. They very beautiful property, sensitive area where they're actually doing some California condor experiments and so on that property. They would like to put this into a conservation easement. In order to appeal to the or apply to the Lee Ray McAllister Fund, which is a state fund set up for conservation of critical lands, they need to get letters of recommendation. They've done so from a number of other agencies. I know in the past we've done a number of these. So I would recommend that we do approve this letter of recommendation that John has written up. Is there any further discussion? Reed, please.
May I comment?
You may.
I'm very familiar with the Lee Ray McAllister Fund, and the only concern that I would have is that the letter of support would stipulate that there would be no provisions because of California condor that would limit the current uses of the property or historic uses of the property. If they tie the California condor to the use of the property and the purpose of the conservation easement, it's a threat, an endangered species, and we know what that can do to us. And so I would encourage not attaching any provisions of the condor to the support of this, because it just makes the land use more complicated, and what could occur there and adjacent properties in the future. And so I would try to segregate ourselves from any tie to that.
Okay.
My only comment.
There were
excellent comment.
There were. I did mention the condor in there, but I didn't. Do you want to look it over before we?
I would just as soon not even mention it and not have it there. I don't think that that's not the primary purpose of conserving the property. Right. They're using that as a leg hold to say this is why it's important.
Yeah.
I would just as soon as not be tied to that and not have it in there. The other thing is that this is the property I think I visited with you about earlier, about them asking whether the county wanted to hold the conservation easement on this property. And I had responded to them that we are not interested in holding a conservation easement, that's not our function. And so they're trying to get someone else to hold that conservation easement. But I would try to alienate ourselves from
I think that's a great comment. And is time of the essence on this getting
approved? Time is of the essence, but we could approve it with
rest it in our motion.
Yeah.
Will that cover us?
Yeah, I can make a new draft. Yeah.
We can do that, can't we, Mike? Any problem there? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. And I'm sure Mr. Higby would. Well, I assume Mr. Higby would be fine with that. But I shouldn't assume.
Yeah.
But I know.
Like you say, with that Lee Ray McAllister Fund, they're looking for a letter of support from the local agency, but I don't know that they're looking super hard at what the content. I mean, they didn't. I don't think they would say, well, the county, right.
The condor, it has other values.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Well, and it lists.
We just don't have to say that's part of why we're supporting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Preserves it for wildlife and grazing specifically.
Do we want to strike that totally, or? Okay.
I will, yeah.
That's from a gentleman that's worked with prairie dogs for a lot of years, and I'm there with you. Okay, thanks. Cindy, please come forward.
It would just be really nice if in there was, and maybe I didn't see it, but a legal description and parcel numbers, because I see that we've discussed it and there's a map, but it does not give a legal, or it's an old map that just shows Three Peaks, whatever, but there are no, so it's hard if you don't have a legal description. So Carrie will need it before she records it, so it would be nice if we'd have it earlier.
Are you talking about the conservation easement or the lease? Oh.
All.
The final conservation easement, but
Yeah,
you're
that.
saying it should have it in this letter, because then it will identify
I don't
it.
see it even in the stuff Chanel included, so maybe it's in there and I just can't see it, but
Well,
I
no,
don't see
I mean,
legal.
what I'm saying is there's two different agenda items.
Yes.
Okay.
And it would be nice if in everything, so we can tie it back to something that we have, because as I'm looking at this, or if anyone in the public wants to then say, well, where is that? What is it? I don't know where Three Peaks Recreation, or that is, or where the Deep Creek area is. I don't know what that is. Is that adjacent to me? Is that going to affect me as an adjacent property owner, where we don't have any legals or parcel numbers? It just makes it hard. So.
Okay. So, thank you very much. Excellent comment. So, Mike and Paul, do we have a description?
Yeah, it's in the agreement that you signed, and a map and adjoining properties. Probably Cindy probably doesn't have that, so I can get her a copy of the lease.
Okay. So we're good with the Three Peaks, but with this conservation easement would be good to add that description.
I wasn't given that, so I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Specifically.
You should be able to get that from Mr. Higbee, or probably the recorders. Well, you'd have to know the parcel number.
That was kind of a late addition to our agenda, and I should be, I guess, a little more.
No, you're good. I don't think we didn't even think about it, but I think you're good. And he did kind of last minute ask for the request, and it's time sensitive. But I appreciate the comments that have been made, and we can take care of the changes with the motion.
Right. I'll include that in my.
That was actually a concern I had,
Excellent.
because he mentioned 800 acres, but not all of it was going to be included.
I thought it was all included, but there's 3 landowners. It wasn't just him. the way
So
I
that was actually a concern I had, even in
Yeah.
drafting the letter.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike and Chad and I tried to look it up online this morning to see who the property owner was and see what other properties that would affect, and we had no idea where it was, and we couldn't find it either.
Really? Okay. Well, before this goes out, we will make sure we've covered all the bases, and we can do we can do the legal part of that in the motion, but we will not send it on until everything's correct.
So and I'll definitely not include any condor language, and we will pin down what the intended conservation easement is.
Okay. And the description.
Who's going to hold the conservation easement?
He did not. Well, like you said, he wanted the county, but he has not. We didn't identify that in the letter, because that has not been determined yet. So.
Okay. Well, if you're ready for motion, Mr.
I
Chairman,
am, yes.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the letter of recommendation regarding the conservation easement in the Deep Creek area north of Miners Peak, with the understanding that we are going to include the legal description of said property, so there's no confusion per Cindy's recommendation, our assessor. And then also we will strike any language that ties this conservation easement provision with the California condor, so there's no implied limited use for that property. That cover it, Reed?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, I will allow your question. Go ahead.
Is that letter in this packet, John?
No, it went out after the packet was made.
John will provide you with a copy momentarily.
Yes, but anyway, yeah, it's we will modify it anyway. But
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
800 acres more or less, owned by whom, in what township section range? I mean, something, but.
Okay. Well, and the motion covers that we will not send this letter on until we have all that verified. So, and I have seconded it. It's moved and seconded that we approve a letter of recommendation regarding the conservation easement in the Deep Creek area. We'll not send this letter until we have the full property description and ownership verified, and we will remove any language regarding the California condor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And thanks all of staff for your scrutiny. We appreciate it. Personnel, Adrian, good morning.
Good morning. A few personnel-related items here. Part A, under Children's Justice Center, recently was confirmed that we've that Stephanie through the CJCs received some grant funding through VOCA and the state. And correct me if I'm wrong. She's here to keep me in line here and to answer questions if needs be. But a reminder that their grant funding goes July to June, correct? So so that's why it's this part of the year as opposed to our budget year. But with that additional funding, there's been discussion and some preliminary work to possibly move a current employee, Teresa Wood, from a part-time victim advocate position to a full-time victim advocate position with applicable employee benefits. And that, again, is apparently addressed as part of this new funding and without any financial cost to the county. But we're submitting that request with the approval, or requesting that the approval be made for the current pay period, which would take into account that July 1st deadline. And again, that's just changing an existing employee from a part-time status to a full-time status, but with the added cost of benefits to be covered by the grant funding. And then also the other personnel-related item that is part of that grant funding is the creation of a new position, a new part-time position to work as a case manager in the Cedar City CJC, correct? So, and the part-time, approximately 20 hours per week, but that would be, again, a creation of a new position that hasn't been in place prior.
But that's also from grant funds, right?
Yes.
Funded by grant.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. / state funds. Okay. Okay, let's
you want to do these together?
Do a motion on that separate.
Do them together or separate?
You can do A, 1 and 2 together. Yeah, that's fine.
So I'll move to approve the PT victim advocate Teresa Wood, increasing her hours and receiving full-time benefits. And the effective date, you say July 1st? What you said?
Sorry, I didn't mention that, but the current pay period, which was actually started on June 30th, but that's like a Sunday, so really it's July 1st. But to match up with the pay period, we're asking that date be June 30th, 2000.
Okay, so I'll modify that to June 30th. 2019, and that's to be paid with the newly approved grant funds from the state of Utah, and then
it's actual federal funds.
Federal funds
from the Victims of Crime Act.
So the / state on our agenda should be crossed through. It's strictly federal funds.
It is federal funds.
Okay, so this is the grant is derived from federal funds, not state, And then also number 2, the approval of a new PT case manager position, 20 hours a week, and that work is to be performed in the Cedar City location, and that's also to be paid with the same grant funds from the federal government.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the part-time victim advocate. This is under Children's Justice Center, and also approval of a new part-time case manager position as mentioned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, and received word just this morning that we need to scratch agenda item B. We'll no longer be requesting approval of that particular new hire. I'll bring a new name at a later date. But as for agenda item C, we have another request for a new hire, part-time assistant cook to work at the Council on Aging, the Cedar City Center. New hire Darcy Tisdale, and with the effective date of July 1st, 2019, and that is a backfill of a vacant position.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to approve the new hire of Darcy Tisdale as a part-time assistant cook effective July 1st, 2019, and that's to be in the Cedar City Center, and that's a backfill position.
Second, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the new hire of Darcy Tisdale in Council on Aging as a part-time assistant cook. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Non-delegated items. Do we have any prairie dog matters? Seeing none, any county board matters? Seeing none, Chair declares this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.